Welcome to Grit, the Real Estate Growth Mindset podcast, hosted by Brian Charlesworth, founder of Sisu. Sisu provides growth automation software for real estate. You'll hear stories from real estate thought and technology leaders, team owners, and brokers on how they grew their business in a rapidly changing industry. You'll learn how to transform your brokerage and teams into a high-performing and analytics-driven business so you have a new, durable, competitive advantage against disruption in your market. So let's get right into it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth. I'm the founder of Sisu and the host of this Grit Podcast show, and grateful to be here today. I have Glen Baker in with me today, and Glen is a RE/MAX team owner. And in this challenging world that we're in, Glen is expanding his business today. Most people are shrinking their business, which I think has given people like Glen, who are power operators, the chance to expand their business. So we're going to dive into his real estate business today. He has been one of the top teams in Jersey for quite some time, and he's also been in the firefighting business for a long time and is currently a fire chief. And Glen has also started and sold, a tech company before. And I want to dive into that today as well. And that was, maybe it's not so much tech company, but Outsource Partners International. We're going to dive into that. So welcome to the show, Glen. Anything you want to add to that intro?
No, I think thanks for having me, and I'm grateful to be here, and let's hit it.
All right. So I got to meet you, Glen, when you came into Sisu Mastery, April of 24. Tell me, how long have you been a Sisu customer now?
We're just going to turn 3 years soon. Yeah, I think in 2 months for 3 years.
Okay. I'm excited. I've never really dove into Sisu Mastery with a customer before, but I think we're going to do that today because I think it had an impact on your business. So,
It did.
but before we do that, can you give me the story of how you got into real estate with everything else going on in your life?
I sold my company, Outsource Partners, in 2011, and my two partners, were older, so they kind of faded away, and I stuck around with the company and had a stay package to stick with the company that had acquired us. I stayed with them for about 7 years, and then I had some life events that happened personally. I traveled 200 days a year, so I flew more than pilots did, 100 countries, 200 days a year. And the next thing you know, I was away on a vacation, and I found out that my sister Wendy had killed herself. And when I came back, it was just like shell shocked. I had to figure out a way to do life again. And then I had said to my wife, who knew me in this career, in this life, I think I'm just going to quit. And I was sitting on a plane. I'll never forget. I was in Detroit. I said, I'm going to make my way home and I'm going to quit. And she said, you can't quit. You're doing too well. You make too much money. You do this, that. And I said, I'm going to die in a plane seat. And I just stopped. I quit. Now, little did you know, I said I was going to quit, and I had already quit 4 months earlier. I was just riding out the rest of the time. But when I got home, I listened to podcasts, and I started to really think again. I guess the way to put it, I got off the corporate wheel, which I was on for quite some time. And that creativity started to come back. And it always brought me back to real estate. And a numerologist in India one time, I'll never forget the place it was in Varanasi, said to me, you belong in real estate. And that was in probably 1999 when I was first in India. But I never really thought of it. And then next thing you know, I was in my backyard doing projects, and my wife said, you need to find a job. You need to do something else because you're going crazy, because I was doing a lot of crazy projects around the house. Yeah. And I said, I want to do real estate. And she said, great. Why don't you sell used cars while you're at it? And then
so the sarcasm came out immediately.
Yes, yeah. She did not think, like, I honestly didn't think much of realtors right at the time because I had bad experiences with them. And in my professional life, customer experience was what we talked about all day and all night. So what I did was I said, I'm going to bring that to my corporate experience to real estate, but still have it with the entrepreneurial spirit. And that's really how I designed the team, how our team operates, how we talk, how we act, and all our systems around that. They behave the same way, customer experience.
Okay, I love it. So we're going to dive into your real estate business, but prior to that, I want to hear more about Outsourced Partners International. What was this business?
So we did outsourcing services. It was finance and accounting primarily. If you were a firm, you had an engineering firm and you had 200 people in your accounting department, we would come in and take it over and cut the cost in half. And we'd do it with systems, people, processes across the world.
Okay, so you sold this in 2011, back when outsourcing things like that was like truly just kind of coming in, wasn't it, at that time?
We were one of the first for sure in the
Yeah.
early 2000s. And then at that time, it was the right time to sell. It was either go public or sell. And the sell was the right answer at the time. And the company who acquired us, just the brightest minds. So I stuck around for, I guess, 6.5, 7 years and enjoyed every minute of that too.
Okay, so you sold your company for 91 million, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yep.
Stayed there for 7 years.
Yep.
Finally decided you're sick of flying. And so you stay home, you're going crazy
Yep.
and dealing with your sister and what happened there, which I'm sorry to hear that. That's a challenge that nobody wants to face in life. And then you say you're going to go into real estate, and your wife does a sarcastic joke saying you might as well sell used cars, basically, right?
That's right.
So how do you go from there to you probably didn't need to work, but now you're like, okay, I'm going to build a real estate business. What actually made you like be able to just kick it in gear and focus on that? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't have in life. Like, is that grit or that drive and that feeling of I need to do something in life to better things. And it sounds like from my perspective, what you're really focused on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're really focused on is the customer experience and improving that experience of people buying a home.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I had a bad experience and it always resonated with me. And when I touch them, I want it to be in a way that they're going to tell their kids about me, right? The person that made that happen. And, all too often I think that realtors think, oh, I opened a door and I negotiated a contract and that's the relationship. And we just do it differently. People are family. I mean, I've been invited to weddings. I was in more weddings since I've been in real estate than I have one of my whole entire life up to that point. I've been 4 weddings before that, and now I've been to a bunch for people I've sold homes. It's a different type of relationship. It's a one-on-one. You're putting someone a roof over their head. How cool is that? Like it's the best business on earth.
Yeah. So you came out to Sisu Mastery in April. And for those of you who don't know, again, I think we opened with this, but Glenn has been on Sisu for about 3 years, and Sisu does a lot, right? And so a lot of times it's hard to really execute, know how to, in the most efficient way, really leverage the power of the platform. So you guys came out to a Sisu Mastery. We now call that behind the scenes of a real estate machine because, as you know, you get to dive into the back office of Spring's business. But tell me about that experience and that event and how that impacted your business.
Yeah, so for me, it's a twice a year event because I can't feasibly put in place all the things fast enough that I learned. So and I guess I'll sum it up by I brought my wife with me. My wife is our team administrator, so clearly she likes real estate now. And I brought her, and we were on the Uber back to the hotel room, and I said, "So what do you think about this, or what do you think about that?" And she goes, "I can't. There's just too much to process. I need a little bit of time to think this through. There was way too much information." And I was like rip roaring ready to go. And that was the context. Like it didn't matter who you spoke to. There was someone willing to share. There was someone willing to give how they do it. I'd ask about a checklist, and next thing you know, it's already loaded in my portal 5 minutes later. I was mind blown. And I've been to a lot of these in my professional life. It was definitely the best.
Okay, so that had an impact on your business. And one of the cool things is our goal is to really be different with that. And instead of you leaving the event saying, okay, what do I need to do? Before you leave that event, we want to implement, right? And so sounds like you got a new checklist implemented before you even left that day. Is that right?
Oh, multiples. I mean, I had my portal set up. I had my checklist fine-tuned. I had an HR checklist loaded in from Spring's business. I mean, it was over the top. It was good.
Cool. So when you say you had your portal set up, are you talking about your client portal?
Yes.
Okay. So you weren't using a client portal before that. Now you have a client portal for your customers. I know that you are all about the customer or consumer experience.
Yeah.
So how has that client portal, which by the way, you guys, it's branded, it's white labeled for Glenn's business, which as you can see, if you're watching this in the background, he runs a Remax business. But how has that impacted the client experience?
Volume of calls comes down. And we had a saying before the portal that if the client calls you, you didn't do your job, right? So now those interactions aren't as many, but they're more meaningful. So it's taken down a lot of that communication side in terms of volume. And especially with the new changes going to play as a listing agent, I can use anything that takes a little call volume down.
Okay. And I would beg to say, even though call volume is down, which is good because those are incoming calls because you're actually doing your job and communicating with them, I would say these clients are far more aware of what's going on in this transaction process than ever before. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Oh, 100%. You're not hounding them, right? You're not telling them what they have to do. They're actually going in and checking it. And you have ones that are compulsive about it. Sometimes they'll be a little bit ahead of me. So, but that information would never be available without the way that we did it in Sisu.
Cool. So tell me about your business. So you have, what's the size of your business? And I want to focus on this because we're in an industry right now where I'm seeing a lot of people reduce the size of their teams. I'm seeing a lot of people focused on reducing expenses, focusing on reducing technology. And sometimes that hits us, but the good news is we're focused on really being your full end-to-end platform. Us in a CRM, you can do everything you need to do in the business. But like, tell me, in this world of people really reducing the size of their businesses, you're really focused on growth right now. Why is that, and how are you able to do that?
Yeah. So the one thing I realized when we did the calculation on the whiteboard with Spring and everyone was how many agents I needed to meet my goal.
How
And
many
that
is that?
was 32 more.
Okay.
So that was a pretty sobering number for me, and I had to get some planning around it. And truth be told, it only really started about 2 months ago, right? So it took me 4 months to get my act together to really figure out how I was going to approach the market. Currently, we have in the New Jersey, North Jersey market, we have 11 agents. We're doing about 171 sides. This year, we'll do probably 220 with that agent count. And I expect that to grow because some of the agents that have come on are just starting the springboard. And then I have two other agents in Massachusetts, which added two other checklists, two other portals, two other everything. And they're kicking butt there. I mean, they're just killing it up there. And right now, I have expansion zones that I'm looking at in Indianapolis, Delaware, and Florida. Those are the immediate ones for the team.
All right. So one way you're expanding, which I think a lot of people are not thinking about right now, is acquiring other teams or brokerages across the country. You shared with me before we started this call that you wouldn't mind spending some time in Arizona. We bought a home in Arizona about a year ago now, just over a year ago now, and absolutely love it down there. Have not been there as much this summer as we were going in the winter, but looking forward to getting to spend more time back down there again. But tell me, like, how is it that you're able to do that in a market that most people are struggling? And thankfully, we just heard interest rates are going to reduce, and I want to talk about the market here in a few minutes. But like, how are you able to expand in the market in the climate that we've been in?
So I kind of come from that Tom Ferry school of there's more nuts than squirrels. And our calls, our context, everything that we speak about is that the market is what the market is, and we have to deal with it when we're in it, right? We're going to adapt. And I laugh because this whole change that was occurring on the 17th of August, we were ready 100 days ago, and it's a zero issue. It's not even a non-issue. We don't even worry about it. In fact, it's better now because we have so much protection in place as buyers agents that we never had in the past. And we've noticed that the sentiment amongst the industry is pretty negative about this. And it's the most opportune time, I think, in real estate history for us to make money. And we're seeing it because when we walk into listing presentation, when we talk to buyers and do our buyer strategy sessions, the context and how we deliver is so positive about what we're seeing and what we're doing. And we're already seeing the hockey stick. Everyone started to nosedive on their commission rates. We're already seeing them starting to come up and we're making more than we did in the past. So I think it's perspective. I honestly, I get on some calls and you hear some doom and gloom from these mastermind groups. And I'm like, man, you're going down the wrong rabbit hole. You have to
Yeah.
look at this the way that it really is, which is a really positive change. And hey, I think who moved my cheese, right? There's agents that I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not making this change. And I'm sorry, I'm pouncing. That's what we're doing is we're just pouncing on those right now.
Yeah, I love it. It's so true. The market is what it is, right?
Yep.
And we can listen to the news and let them influence us
Yep.
and pout and not work and not show up. Or we can show up and do the work, and we're going to probably have more success than we've ever had because the majority of the people listen to the news. They don't just show up and do the work. And so this is an opportune time for people like you. So you've gone from, hey, we're prepared, our agents are making more money. Now you're focused as of 2 months ago, we're going to recruit more agents and we're going to expand into other markets by acquiring teams. Let's first talk about recruiting more agents. How do you go about doing that in this market?
So right now,
If you've been enjoying Grit, please help us continue to grow the channel by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with a friend. Now back to Grit.
I'm very, very video based. So the way that I do it is I put out some messaging. Some of them are pleas on social media, just, hey, here's what I have to offer, or your face here if you want to become an agent. And the others are targeted. So I have a dashboard I use to see what agents' performance is. And if there are agents that did well in the past, but clearly aren't adapting to what's happening in the market, I reach directly out to them. I send them a video. I send video to everyone. I do about 10,000 videos a year. I send out custom videos with their information, sometimes even their stats up, to say, hey, I'm watching and I care and I want to talk to you. And that has started to really resonate. It started to pull things together.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, based on my experience, now is probably a better time if you want, and some teams don't want experienced agents, but if you want experienced agents, like now is a better time than ever because these agents who are on their own are struggling. Many of
Yeah,
them, not all of them, but many of them are struggling.
yeah, I agree.
And so
And
it's an
I'm so
opportunity to
confident.
help turn their world around, right?
Yeah, I know, and I'm so confident in how if you follow the approach that we have, because now that we've set up different locations, right? We did Massachusetts, and the lead engine started like just right away. The way that we do our lead generation, the way we do our nurtures, and immediately a new agent, net new, no experience in the business, is doing 7 deals at an average price of $700,000, right? So, and that lead flow and the process that we've taught them instantly was replicatable in another location. So that said to me, we have something that we're doing that's a little different. And when I go to market, I'll say to agents, you follow what I do. And if you don't make 100 grand in your first year, I'll give you $20,000. That's how confident I am that if you follow the process, you're going to make real money. But you have to follow the process. You have to do the work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So moving into new states, you moved into Massachusetts, you're talking about moving into Arizona. What, like you said, your lead flow automatically is picked up over there. What about your systems? Like, how difficult is it for you to move into a new market and keep the same systems in place? Which, when I say systems, a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about there. So maybe tell us about your systems and how you really streamline your business.
Yeah. So in all locations, it's three components. It's Lofty, it's Sisu, and it's .loop. I mean, that's how we manage everything. The challenge is that we have a customer experience I want to deliver, and I want it to be consistent regardless of where you are or what your step in the contracting process is. That means that I have to create this whole entire platform for each location to customize to their state's needs for the contracting piece. So when we come into, like an example, Massachusetts, we had to completely revise the way we did it without tinkering with the magic sauce, so to speak. So it's been a process. I will say it is not for the faint of heart. It's like setting up a whole nother business altogether. But once it's up and humming, it's the same exact metrics, the same exact stats. You can watch them, you can monitor them. And when we get on calls, it's no different if you're a Massachusetts agent than if you're a New Jersey agent. The accountability is the same accountability. The lead flow is the same lead flow. The measures, I should say, the quantities that we give you of leads before, or capacities, I should say is a better word, that we give you. It's all the same because I know the metrics. And a lot of it I keep in Sisu. I'm a fanatic in terms of that.
I was going to say, how do you know your metrics? I remember coming into this business and trying to do all of that on spreadsheets myself, which is why I built Sisu. But I mean, how important is it to know actually what's going on in each of those businesses when they're remote and out of state?
So it's like a soothsayer. I have to say, when I look at the Sisu numbers, I can literally tell what the market is doing, not just us, but what the market is doing based on my team stats. And it's got to the point where the team says, how do you know what's coming? And I literally I predicted that we were going to have the blip in July to August, that we're going to have a huge bounce the second 2 weeks, and then forget rates and all the other stuff. I can see it in the stats and how people are communicating receptivity on the client side. And it's been 4 or 5 cycles now where that has happened. And I attribute it to just looking at the Sisu numbers, knowing where I stand, seeing patterns and deciding what a pattern does. And the team is now rip roaring because our last quarter is our strongest quarter. It's the craziest thing. Our last quarter is always our strongest quarter of the year because we don't take the pedal off the metal. And I gave them some of the stats that they will do individually, and they are excited. Like over last year, some of these agents are going to do 75% more business in the last quarter. It's crazy.
That is cool. We were actually having a conversation within the Sisu team, having 3,600 teams on our platform now of, hey, how do we leverage this information to help people know more what's coming in the market? Because we're seeing things like that as well now. And so hopefully you'll be seeing stuff from us, Glenn, in the near future that actually takes what you're doing, but does it more on like a global scale level of 3,600 teams information, not just your own. Although sometimes your own can predict what's going to happen in your business better than that number, as
Yeah,
long as you're
sometimes I
paying
feel like Neo in the
attention.
Matrix. I feel like Neo in the Matrix when I'm looking at the dashboard, right? It's like it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you talked about leveraging Sisu for agent accountability morning huddles, and that's really the biggest change you made after you came out of Sisu Mastery. Talk about that. Like, how do you hold your agents accountable?
Yeah, so we were doing typical morning calls, but the problem was they would roam, they would not have direction. And when we talked about show me your dials, who hit their dials, who hit this, and when you're looking at your phone and have your phone ready, and I asked the question on the call, it just changes and it's right front and center with them that they have to watch their numbers. It's their business. I always say that to them. It's your business. You set your goal. My job's to get you to it, right? And help you get you to it. I can't do the work. And that huddle piece changed the dynamic because those calls are 15 minutes on point. Everyone's grateful for them. People apologize when they miss them on the team. They actually apologize. How many realtors miss an office or team meeting and apologize for missing it because they find so much value in it? And I never, ever cancel. Like I could be on my deathbed and I won't cancel because there's such valuable calls for all of us as a team to get up, get the morning coffee and get going. Now, the second piece was, and I didn't even know it existed until the mastermind, was that agent accountability report. And as a techie, when I click that, I'm like, do you know how much number crunching that thing's doing in the background? I'm like, we're bringing that server to its knees because it's got so much data. But that report and having them present their business to me on that Friday call, every other Friday we do it, it is game changing. Like all of a sudden they understand pipeline, they understand how much they're doing and really doing instead of what they think they're doing. And it's super. That really was a game changer.
Yeah, I was in Whistler this last weekend. Spring was in another 29029. And I sat down with the sales leader who has not yet been to a CC Mastery. And I spent 2 hours training him on how to run one-on-ones and how to really leverage Sisu for accountability, all the stuff you just talked about. And when he saw that report, his eyes just lit up and he was like, he didn't know it existed.
Yes.
Uh, and so that's on me. I need to do a better job of letting everyone know it exists. So I'm going to tell you guys now, if you're running one-on-ones with your team, and with your agents, and you do not use the agent accountability report, it's an absolute must. And the other thing I'll say is that agent accountability report is 1,000 times more powerful if you have them go in and put in their transaction amount, their GCI, and their agent paid income. So you can actually help them forecast their income and help focus on deals that are higher commission paying deals and strategize and all the things that you normally wouldn't do in one-on-ones because you can't see deep enough into their business unless you have something like that. Glenn, do you have anything you want to add to that I'm missing?
I'll just say we have team meetings at the brokerage level. And when I talk about this stuff, it's almost like over everyone's head, right? So, and I think that it's one of these baby steps and eat the elephant bite by bite. And all the timing of those things hit when I had the need. And that really helped me push it forward. But that report, boy, that agent accountability report, it is, if you need one thing in real estate, you need that report.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree with you. I remember carrying a little book around with me that had the 15 people. This is when I was selling real estate for a short period of time for 18 months, but it was the 15 people that I thought I could get under contract in the next 30 days, right? And every day I would brainstorm and to myself and like, okay, what can I do for this person? How can I move the needle forward and get them to that next level? But having it on paper and having it in this agent accountability report are two different things. So super, super valuable. Let's talk about the market real quick. And I just looked at your name on here and saw Chief Baker. So we didn't really get into your experience in the firefighting industry, but I'm going to call you Chief for a minute. So
Okay.
tell me about this market. What's your opinion? You shared a little bit and you're so on top of it that you made all the changes that were required last week. You made those 100 days ago. But
Yeah. And
what can people do today to really take market share? Because there are a lot of people leaving the business because of fear. And there's really no reason to have fear. So I really want to emphasize that to those listening to the show.
Yeah, I think that it all starts with a fundamental understanding of why this change took place, right? And I look at it and say, I'm a pretty transparent person. I always laid out all the fees. I always did those things. But the fact is, most agents didn't. right? They didn't really have that conversation on the buy side and say, hey, you're paying. And last time I checked, the buyer's the only one ever coming to closing with a check. So my attitude towards it was, this is the level of transparency that we probably needed a little bit. And I'm not going to fight it, and I'm going to figure out how to use it to my advantage. And now it's a conversation. We even have in our listing presentation the ability to, I'm sorry, buyer side strategy session to have tiers. Like if you want this service suite, it's going to cost you this percentage. If you want this service suite, this is because it's my time, my effort, and what I'm going to do for you and go over the top. It enabled us to demand more, and everyone's looking at it like it's cutting us down and getting less. And we said, this is the opportune time.
So I'm meeting with more and more people these days, and I meet with so many team owners who are telling me that they're now getting like up to 4% on the buy side. Now I had seen that on the listing side previously, but not on the buy side. So like what is it you're actually doing to provide a higher level of service that they're willing to pay you more than they've ever paid up till this point in our US history, right? On the
Yeah.
buy side.
And I think we've actually documented what we do, right? So now we're required to put on a 5-page form in my state, and in it says, here's the duties of the agent, right? Well, we go the duties of the agent, and then there's an other box, and we say see addendum. And then that page has 99 points on it of what we do. And the 99 points are everything from not only like standing by your home inspection, opening up the door for when you want to bring your parents through to take measurements the second and third and the fourth time, all those other things that get done, right? All the contractor suites that we bring in to resolve issues. It gives them the palette of this isn't just opening a door and getting something under contract. It goes much, much further than that. Down to, there's a lot in our market, it's super hot. So a lot of people are leaving provisions to, hey, you can leave anything that's non-hazardous waste in the house. So essentially, you can leave your house as it is, walk away, and we'll take it that way. And we'll do that to win the deal. And then we'll have the clean out crew clean out the house the day of the closing for them. Like things that are over the top to make it worthwhile for them to jump into a deal and also get their offer accepted for the home they love.
Is that a list you'd be willing to share with our listeners?
100%. Yep.
Okay.
100%.
If you'll share that with me, I'll make sure we post it on the link to this podcast.
Cool.
That would be great. I would love to get that in the hands of our listeners because I agree. Now is an opportune time to start getting what you're really worth for the work you're doing. Because so many times we don't express the work we're doing, which is one more time, it's not a shameless plug. You really need to have the client portal.
Yes.
Like more than ever, you need to communicate with your clients in a way that they're used to getting communicated with all the time. Right before this podcast, my 15-year-old daughter, 16 as of next week, she gets out of school early on her B days. She only has 2 periods. So she was home. She texted me and said, do you want me to order DoorDash for you? Yes, she orders DoorDash. Well, I went down 30 minutes before this meeting and I said, how far, where's the food at? And she said, it's 3 minutes away. Right? We know that on our food getting delivered. Do we know that on all the steps of our real estate transaction? In Glen's case, we absolutely do. So make sure you guys are leveraging that. Last question here, Glen. Interest rates are scheduled to drop, right?
Yep.
How do you see this affecting the economy? And obviously nobody knows what's going to happen here, but I'd like to get your take on like, what does this do for home sales? What happens in the market over the next 6 to 12 months as far as buyer's market, seller's market, listing inventory, all this kind of stuff. And I know you're in Tom Ferry's world and you're hearing what he's saying. So anyway, I want to know your thoughts on all those things.
Yeah, I call it the last big pop. That's what I'm telling my team. I foresee one last hurrah for a little over a quarter is what I'm thinking. And you're going to see, unfortunately, with the buyer broker changes, we're in this hybrid mix where home prices haven't adjusted to take out the commission that the buyer would ultimately be given. And if agents, unscrupulous agents, start to put out no comp, right, or no concession, that's going to be a challenge for buyers today. And I'm seeing it in pockets. Most of them, you can overcome it by putting in a great offer. But where I'm going with that is that challenge for buyers existed. And now we're getting into another challenge for buyers, which is rates are going to come down. Competition is definitely up. Like it's already starting. The swell has begun. And it's almost like a 1-2 punch. So I think some buyers are going to get pretty frustrated. I always trend off of rent rates, and rents are holding. They're not going backwards, they're just holding. And that kind of leads me to believe that this is going to even out. after the first of the year. We're going to see a much more normal cyclical real estate market, and it's not necessarily unwelcome. I'm kind of ready for it.
Okay. So last prediction, we went from 6.2 million homes selling. We know the average is 5 million. We went 2021, 6.2 million, 22, 6.8 million, 23, 3.8 million. I'm not sure where this year is going to end, but from what I've seen, it's going to be close to 3.8 million again.
Yep.
Tell me, what is your forecast? What do you think next year? How many homes are going to sell?
I'm thinking right around 4. Yeah, and I think new construction is going to help with that. I think that's what's going to even it out. Unfortunately, it's not going to be in my area. I think it's going to be in the middle states mostly, but 4 mil, I think, is around the number.
You're saying this year or you're saying next year?
Yes, next year.
Next year. Okay, interesting.
This year, I think we're going to stay flat. We're going to be around the same amount, 3.8-ish.
Yep, I believe that as well. But I'm predicting that next year we're back up to 5 million. So
Wow.
We're going to come back to this and we're going to hit this. I'm going to have Glenn on this show next year at this time. You remind me, Glenn, we're going to figure out how we're pacing at this time next year towards 4 million or 5 million homes.
Yeah, I'll be in 20 states if we're at 5 million homes, that's for sure.
And I love it. I want you in 20 states. So you guys, I've really enjoyed my time today with Glenn. Thank you for listening to the show. It's always fun to have these team leaders and broker owners in here that just are just crushing it in this market. And Glenn is one of them. If you want to get a hold of Glenn, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Any of the social media handles at MorrisAgent.com, or just text me 973-727-8539. I'll answer.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to repeat that number one more time.
973-727-8539.
Okay, great. Text Glenn, you guys. He'll share with you the secrets that he's doing to grow in this market, and you should be doing them as well. Glenn, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to continuing to watch your success.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast. If you have an interest in a free 7-day trial of Sisu, go to sisu.co, sisu.co. Make sure that you use the coupon code GRIT, that's GRIT, to waive all your setup fees and receive a 10% discount on your subscription. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to subscribe, search GRIT, the Real Estate Growth Mindset, on iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Take care.